On live now.
Hello, this is Heidi Boplis, and you're listening to The Voice 17104, Harrisburg's first and only faith-based, community-driven internet radio station. Your choice. The Voice 17104.
Welcome, my brothers and sisters, to the Richard James Show on 17104, The Voice. Greetings and salutations. Welcome, my friends, relatives, to the Richard James Show. Again, we are in Women's History Month and our second broadcast in Women's History Month. And we are most honored to have Kathy Waters, Esquire, an attorney, here as our honored guest. And welcome, Ms. Waters. Welcome to the Richard James Show again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the honors.
Well, we appreciate the idea of you're coming back. And just to kind of remind some of our listeners, Kathy Waters is a lifelong resident of the city of Harrisburg. Harrisburg, born and raised. And she's a member of a family, one of her most renowned, honored, beloved family is the Waters family. And there are a herd, excuse the terminology, of attorneys, very capable, well-known attorneys, as well as educators and others that is a part of the Waters family, African Americans that are doing it for us. And Kathy, could you just give them a little bit of history of where you are and what you're doing currently in terms of your profession?
Yes. Well, I am currently I'm in private practice.
Yes.
I do criminal law. I do family law. I do contract law. I have worked for some non-profit associations. And I also own a business. I own a daycare. So I always have my hands in something. But I started my career 25 years ago. And I was, when I started, I was a prosecutor. I was a deputy district, actually the first African female deputy district attorney here in Dauphin County.
Fantastic, fantastic. Kathy, we are a nation in crisis.
Yes, we are.
We have things that have happened in this country that haven't occurred since the Civil War. On January 6th, we had an insurrection in the capital of our country. I've never seen anything like it in the 79 years that I've been on the planet.
Yes.
We had individuals storming the Capitol, breaking in the rooms, breaking into offices, breaking into the chambers. And it is alleged that this insurrection was instigated by the former president of the United States. Can you imagine that? That a president would encourage such a thing. And there are attorneys that are looking in and investigating it and considering bringing charges against our president. At least 3 of those attorneys are African Americans.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting. We have an attorney in Fulton County in Georgia. We have I think Letitia James out of New York, and then we have the Attorney General for the District of Columbia.
Yes.
It appears that it's a profession which is so needed and which we've gone into. And I understand that you are considering, or you are involved in and have decided, maybe considering is the wrong terminology, but that you are throwing your hat in the ring to run for a judge in common pleas court in Dauphin County.
That is correct. I have actually already filed my petitions and received my acceptance. And I am a registered Democrat. I am running for Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas judge. There have only ever been, to my knowledge, two women that have had that honor to sit on the bench as judges. And I think that that's very sad. And there's never been an African American female that's been on that bench. But I am not running to be the first. I am a trailblazer. Like I said, I was the first African American female deputy district attorney in Dauphin County. I remember being the first African American female in my elementary school. So I've experienced a lot of first, and quite frankly, I'm exhausted by it. I don't, I don't, I think it's sad that we still have to have first. I'm not running to be the first. I want to be the best at being fair and using my wisdom and using my knowledge and being there for all people the way it's supposed to be.
Yes, yes. Well, the reason you're the first has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with a sexist society, and which has a glass ceiling, and which has not really promoted, allowed, or encouraged women in the profession to do that. Now, let me ask you a question. Is my notion that Dauphin County in general is a Republican county? Is that correct?
That is correct. However, there was a surge in the last round of elections, and I believe there could be more Democratic voters registered now.
Oh,
But I want everyone to be careful and cautious of resting on their laurels. I believe, in my opinion, when President Barack Obama was elected, I I think, or at least I felt as I watched around me, people became so excited and happy to at least have some diversity in the highest office in this country, which had never been seen before, that people kind of felt like they arrived. And you have to guard those rights constantly, or they will slip away or be taken away. And now, in over 38 states, you have Republican majority legislatures that are trying to now restrict voting rights so that you cannot get a representation. And we've got to be careful that we don't rest too comfortably and not come out, or only come out in a 4-year presidential election, because all the main and key decisions over people's lives are made on the local level. So I feel like if you don't vote, then you don't have a right to complain. You don't really have a choice. You can't sit there and say, well, this judge made this ruling on me or my grandchildren or children. It was so unfair. It was so unjust, if you don't register to vote. And currently, I could be wrong, but I believe that there's only one Democratic seated judge. Now, there are some judges that have cross file, and they're there to represent all people. So I do not want to give off the appearance that Republican judges have not been fair. But I'm saying that if we're looking at the bench, I believe there's only been one Democrat for quite some time, and that person is retiring. And we need to guard um, all parties. I personally don't even like judges being considered political, because
yeah.
you have to rule and reign and make decisions for people that are independent, Republican, Democrat, not registered, white, Black, Asian, gender neutral. And I just don't, I respect the process that's there, but I do wish there was another process that was less of appearance of political. But we have to safeguard the rights of everyone.
Yeah, as you stated, many states throughout the union, including Pennsylvania,
Yes.
where the local legislators are trying to uh, suppress the African American vote. And quite honestly, people used to worry about whether or not African Americans will come out. Well, Joe Biden proved that they will. Barack Obama proved that they will if they have something or someone to vote for.
Yes.
I'm going to make a confession to you. I
Okay.
was a Republican for over 20 years.
That is okay.
In fact, I was chairperson for a group known as the Frederick Douglass Club.
Okay.
So Frederick Douglass was one of the best and well-known Republicans. Uh, it was a time then where at least the Republican Party had its Scranton ring and had its Rockefeller ring that were more liberal policies and pro-civil rights and that kind of thing. Uh, it was never the entire party because we had to fight an uphill battle, and eventually I left the Republican Party. I was actually forced out because they refused to support African American participation. Now, currently bringing it up to date, we had a illegal mafia style individual as president of the United States who tried to overturn the electoral college process and tried to use the legal system, which would have been okay. The legal system, as long as you're doing it legally or challenging it in court, I don't have a problem with that. But when you send thugs to come in and tear down the Capitol, I have a serious problem with that. And the person who had to call in the military or the National Guard was the one causing the insurrection in the first place. And all these people, the head of the police force uh, and the police and the military folks all reported to Donald Trump, who was causing the whole darn thing. I say to my folks, it is important for us to sit on both sides of the table. Yeah, it's good to be a defense attorney, but God knows it's also important to be a prosecutor. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, of course I agree. Like I said, I took a pay decrease just to get some experience at the district attorney's office here in Dauphin County. Um, oh, so many years or decades ago. But I thought that experience would be good for me and prove valuable, which I think it did, because I got to be on one side of the table, but I've been on the defense side of the table for years now. And that is important because you need to also be able to see some of the challenges that defendants and their counsel have, and you have to make the process fair for all. And even in the political process, I do strongly believe that the elections were fair. The courts overwhelmingly decided that there were no issues. Uh, at least there were no legal issues to be challenged.
Right.
And I think that at this point, we have to be careful. There should be investigations. We need to uncover what occurred so we can make sure it doesn't happen again. You cannot be on one side of this issue and say, "Oh well, it was my party, so let's move along and let's forget, let's heal," and then not heal the process or fix the process so that that doesn't occur again. Because what's going to happen if this stands the way it is right now? It will encourage the other party or another party to be created that will just use the system and try to become physically brute to get their way. And we will be a lawless society.
Mhm.
Or, as they say, we will become the banana republic, which is so many other places, and then we won't have any credibility with any foreign nations.
We also need to make sure that individuals who participate within the system are secure. Many of the lawmakers, including some of the judges, have been threatened by some of these right-wing militia groups. And that has been encouraged by people like Donald Trump and his supporters. The terrible thing about the whole thing is that we can't write off Donald Trump and say he doesn't exist. Donald Trump received 74 million votes, the second largest tally of votes ever in the history of the United States. 74 million out of 330 million population. Ain't half bad. The unfortunate thing for Donald Trump is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris received 80 million votes. That was a phenomenal existence.
Yes, it
And,
was.
when we look at what happened, I mean, people were beginning to be discouraged about Joe Biden's candidacy because we had a number of very, very qualified people running, including Kamala Harris, who was a former attorney general for the state of California, the former district attorney for San Francisco, and former senator from the state of California, who was running. He had some very qualified. Cory Booker, former mayor of New Jersey, was running. But what happened was, good friend from South Carolina, representative from South Carolina, Claiborne, through his support behind Biden because of their history, Black Caucus, many of their members supported Biden because Biden was a good man. They had blocked Obama at every turn. They had blocked his judges, his nominees. The gentleman now who is going in, I can't think of his name. He was nominated for Supreme Court, and the Republicans refused to even allow his nomination to be presented.
Yes.
So it's really important that good people,
Yes.
good qualified people stand up and participate in the system.
Absolutely.
It's one thing to criticize and one thing to say the system is wrong, the system is bad, and then sit back on your laurels. So I think that you are to be, should be honored and considered highly for being a participant. And you always have been a participant. And you come to the table with a wealth of experience. Years experience. You are not a novice. You're not someone who's only been at it 2 or 3 years.
No, I've been at this for, like I said, 25 years. I even worked for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I would travel around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania litigating discrimination law. And I worked I was a federal attorney for some years for the US Patent and Trademark Office. So I have made my rounds at trying to learn many types of law so that I could not only make a living, but make a difference. Um, I consider myself a little different because I'm a private practice attorney, sole proprietor of my own. And so I don't have the law firms. Traditionally here in Harrisburg, well, I'll say statistically, here in the greater Harrisburg area, you still have, I'd say, attorneys of color. They're still very underrepresented in law firms. So I had to once again be a trailblazer. If no one's going to hire me, I will, I will do it myself. But we've got to get beyond that. But I do plan on. It was a little, I had to think about it for a while. But once I thought about it, I thought I could make a difference on the bench, and I want to be able to help everyone. But again, I come from a background where I've had clients on many occasions that didn't even have the funding. And I ended
Yeah.
up taking them pro bono, even though I had, a family to take care of. But sometimes matters are so important that you have to stick up for those issues.
We have had on many, many occasions experienced what I refer to as the just us system, or maybe I say the just them system, where we have been treated unfairly by the courts. I think it's very, very difficult for a all-white jury to be fair. It's not impossible, but it's improbable. I can remember while living in the city of Seattle, King County, and working for the Port of Seattle, I filed suit against the port. I was in charge of an equal opportunity affirmative action program, and they were repeatedly discriminating against people of color and against women. Uh, and they fired me because I was too aggressive. But I based my reviews on facts, not so much on color, but on facts. And we went before a federal court. This was a suit against the Port of Seattle, so an independent political entity. And we lost that case. My wife was so shaken and upset by it, she suffered a minor heart attack.
I'm sorry
But
to
I
hear.
have seen over again, particularly in a place like Dauphin County, where you have a predominantly white population, uh, jurors reflecting the geography of the area coming out predominantly white and supporting a white prosecutor. I just think that it's really critically important that we have, again, I say on both sides of the aisles and in that judge's chair, people of color. It's important that we jump in and that we participate in the system. Um, and I'm going to ask you, uh, in terms of your participation in the system, have you seen situations where prejudice may have affected the outcome in a case?
Yes, I had my own case, which you didn't know about.
Oh,
I used to be an attorney for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, went on to do other things, and I had applied for actually the position held previously by Homer Floyd,
oh,
and I filed suit. The position was given to um, a person that was not of color. It was a female, and I felt that looking at her background and resume, she was not as qualified as myself, or there were even others. Kaba Brunson. There were just too many of us that had too much experience, and a jury was selected, and very interesting that the African Americans were struck off my jury. And I remember someone saying to me after the jury was selected, "This is not your jury of peers." I knew then exactly where it was going. You shouldn't have to make those assumptions, but they prove themselves by themselves. Um, Good thing though is that at least Kaba Bronson, he was able to recoup and take it further and prove that PHRC had not been acting in the manner that it should be, which is even more difficult because that's the top agency of the state that's supposed to do the right thing. So we have a long way to go, and it was heartbreaking. Um, but as my father taught me, you dust yourself off, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you move forward and you keep the fight up. And that's what I have done. One of the things that troubles my spirit to this day that I used to share with my children and family, close family members, is one of the things that bothered me about being in criminal law. I would go to courthouses, particularly I do most of my work here in Dauphin County. And, the attorneys are on one side of the transaction. There's like a separator, little swinging doors that separate the attorneys, where they are, the judge, um, the probation officers, the sheriffs. They're all, the court reporter. They're all in one spot. But behind that, I would constantly take a look behind me, and I would see so many people of color. But on the other side, I would see only myself, or maybe myself and one other person of color. And that's got to change. And I'm hoping that it's changing more and more. But we have to be careful, like of the bats and strikes. There's a law that, of course, requires uh, the attorneys not to strike someone based off of race. We've got to make sure we protect the political system. I hear young people, because my children are in college, and I hear young people around them all the time saying one of the things that upsets them, especially since the George Floyd matter and marches, they say the system has to change. We having a jury of persons that are supposedly from your community, it doesn't work because they don't. If it's a certain type of case where there might be a victim of color or a defendant of color, you want them to be surrounded at least by people of color and people, or if they're of a poor background, you want them to have people that are of these different backgrounds, not just of one background. So I do think that there's plenty of room for but I would love to get on the bench to be. That was one of the gold rings that I want to go after in pursuing this seat, because there needs to be even sentencing reform. The sentencing guidelines need to be changed. They've changed federally, but still, you still have a problem with the states.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Several decades ago, the country enacted a crime bill. 3 strikes and you're out. It was supported by some of the major white Democrats. Joe Biden supported the bill.
Yes.
Uh, Hillary Clinton supported it.
Yes.
Bill Clinton supported it. Uh, that was racist. It was profiling. And it worked against African Americans. There was issues with cocaine.
Versus
Crack
crack.
cocaine, or the cheaper cocaine
Yes.
that black folks got into, had higher accountability. And
Yes.
many blacks went to prison for a long time behind this issue, just because it's different. I mean, there were thin lines. People didn't understand there were things, and the way the law was structured determined whether or not you would go to prison. And back in the day, it was illegal. Marijuana was illegal, and many people of color who smoked marijuana, and now it's legal in many states. It's used for medicinal and medical purposes, and probably, and that's my guess, I'm no doctor, probably less dangerous than cigarettes, which is a drug, less dangerous than alcohol, which is a
Right.
socially accepted, very well woven into our society, is and well thought of
Right.
drug. And what I'm saying is a lot of things in terms of valuing sentences and valuing the law, you have to look at what's behind it, and what and statistically analyze what is the effect of the way the law is written. That's why it is so critically important to have people of color, along with whites, I'm
Yes.
not saying turn all the legislators into black seats. I'm not saying
Right.
that. I wouldn't want that either. But to have people who are represented at every level in government, that's where it's so clearly important. And the thing I love about you, Kathy, is that with your high level of skills and your high level of education, uh, you don't take no stuff. I mean, people have got to teach you correctly. Your tone is very, very positive. Your approach is very, very, very positive. But you obviously will not allow them to run over you, to treat you in any kind of way because you know the law, and you will be the law enforcer and the judge. Yeah,
Well,
I
I
think I'm
thank you
talking a
for
little bit
that.
too much. Sorry about that.
No, no, no. I know. I'm enjoying the conversation because there are matters and issues that really are dear to my heart. Because another issue that a platform issue for me is I look at cash bail.
Yes,
And if you look at these types of issues, people of color are really being hurt at such higher rates just behind cash bail. They're sitting behind bars when other persons can afford to get out, which is affecting their ability to hold a job, which is tearing their family apart because economically they can't make it because someone couldn't get bail. There are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. And again, that is not going to happen just federally. And like I said, my biggest fear is that we rush out for these big presidential elections and then we sit back.
yes,
But we forget that it's the local the local races, those legislatures you vote on that will be writing the laws where they're currently trying to restrict your voting rights,
right.
or voting on a judge in a county or for superior court or a commonwealth court, and they're making decisions over you and your family's lives, from not just criminal, but it could be contracted economically. It's amazing to me, and we have got to stop doing that and get out there and stay there consistently.
That is so true. And that cash bail is a big one because a lot of times we do not have the money, and then the judge has some degree of flexibility in setting bail.
Yes,
And that's why
that
it's really important that you have a fair judge,
exactly.
that's on the bench and will take into account all of the circumstance. You have someone who's unfair, who's sexist or who's racist, it's a problem. And let's take a look at the population of our prison systems, overwhelmingly represented by African Americans and also other people of color.
Yes,
Many Spanish speaking, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, what have you, are in our prison system because they don't have the cash bail, because they cannot afford the high powered lawyer, because they go before a bigoted judge and a racist jury and they wind up in prison. But for every action, there's a reaction.
yes,
As a result of that, we are paying millions and millions and millions of dollars in warehousing people of color and keeping them in prison. And I noticed, and with these prison reform, that the first thing they began to do is look at some of the people that should have never been locked up in the first place. Low level crime, misdemeanors crime, should have never been in jail. And they find themselves having to release. But there's a price, there's a price tag
yes.
that comes with bad, poor judicial decisions that are being made. That's why I'm tickled to death and very happy that someone of your response, your caliber,
Thank you.
And I pray to God that you are elected. And I'll say this over there. I don't care. I will support you and work for you and work with you in any way I possibly can.
Well, thank you very much. And we will continue to try and move forward and help as many as we can. I do hope and pray that the voters see it in their heart to elect me. Um, my one of my campaign mottos is fair and balanced, and
Yes.
um, fairness for all. And I believe that we need to do more of that. And I'm not going to give up that megahorn um, on that issue. Because again, there are even programs now. We are getting a little better. You have certain programs like your ARD program, which is your accelerated rehabilitative disposition program, disposition program. And so for those that may have a first time offense, that's a low offense, they can get in there and they can go through a probation period and get their record expunged. But we have the veterans program. But here is the problem. You're still asking people to provide a great deal of money to enter the programs.
Wow.
So I mean, if you let's think about it. If you have someone that's shoplifted, okay, now you have I'm just making up a scenario, but now you
Sure.
have COVID-19 and shoplifting is up all across the country. People are in food lines. They're starving. They don't have employment. All kinds of things are going on. They can't feed their families. So they do something wrong and they shoplift and they get caught. So now they have to go through the criminal justice system. But if they want their record erased, they're going to have to produce monies.
Right.
The very, and it's sometimes a great deal of money. Like in a DUI, it may be $1,500 just to enter a program, or $1,000 if it's not a DUI. That's just to enter the program. That has nothing to do with cost and fines, nothing else. You know, or what you pay to be on probation for probation hookups, nothing else. So the very reason that a defendant has come into contact with the law, now they are being hit with that same
Right.
problem. So I just think that we have to start thinking about this a little differently.
Yeah.
We've got to get some other programs going. We've got to find a way to make them less costly. And we've got to become less litigious. We're in the United States, we're such a litigious nation that everything that happens, we want someone arrested.
Yeah.
We want someone, we spend so much money housing. Maybe they should not have lost their time by being in prison.
Right. It's a terrible thing.
Very.
Terrible, terrible, terrible thing. In every area of the system, uh, we need positive individuals. We've lost ground. We've gone backwards in the last 4 years under the Trump administration rather than forward. And one amazing thing about the Trump supporters is that some of the people that are hurt the most by his policies are the people that are his most fervent supporters. Some of these poor, downtrodden whites who are so afraid of any person of color, are so afraid of someone who's different, that might be Jewish or even might even be Catholic. And they're so busy trying to fight us and to keep us out of positions of responsibility, and they just hate the idea of Barack Obama ever being president. Uh, and Michelle Obama being the first lady of the United States, that they'll destroy the system. And some of those crazed individuals who went in and desecrated solemn ground. I just have, even though I know that some of our ancestors were slave owners, I consider the Capitol a sacred ground.
Yes.
I mean, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine people coming in and breaking windows and tearing down doors and threatening the lives of individuals. With his big lie, huge lie, 60 courts throughout the nation, Republican appointed judges, as well as some of the judges that he appointed himself, almost unanimously. I think he won one case out of 60. All unanimously said that there was no fraud in that election. And this man, this ridiculous, immoral individual, sent these hoodlums to destroy, the system. But the thing that I love about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and some of the other leadership is they refused to be intimidated, in spite of the fact, of course, they were afraid. And fear is a natural thing, but they went back into session and completed the Electoral College. Now, I am no supporter of the Electoral College. Let me say this. I think for the presidential election, it should be a popular vote. And if that was the case, Biden would have won by 7 million votes. I don't believe in it, but the Electoral College is the law of the land. And so we have got to support and enforce the law. If you don't like the law, change it.
Yes. If we don't work, I have to agree with you. If we don't work towards having one set way that we can all agree on how we're going to conduct elections and write laws, we've got to, if we don't, we are going to be a ruleless, reckless society.
Yes.
I think that there have been one of the problems, in my opinion, in the last, I want to say, few years, has been too much symbolism. It's been way too much symbolism. Well, if it's Republican, I'm going to vote on it. If it's Democrat, I'm going to vote on it. Unless you're an evangelical. We have become so caught on symbolism that we've just forgotten the very fundamental basics. My mother is my pastor, and she preaches. I heard her preach. She talked about, sow as a man soweth, shall he reap, or shall she reap. And she said,
I
no
love it.
one can stop your reaping.
Mhm.
You can sow bad seeds, but you'll reap them eventually. And no mother or father can stop you reaping that bad. No spouse can stop that. And same with good. Eventually that seed comes forth. So I look at people that are just stuck in these symbolism type groups, and I say that they're going to all have to, at some point, meet their maker. They'll either come to a conclusion before that, or a conclusion will be made upon them at some point. That's just my opinion. So, if you want to continue to do what in your heart, and based off of law is not right, then you will have to reap it at some point. I just don't know when and where that reaping will be.
That which ye sow, yet shall ye also reap.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, and I just want to, if I can just add something, Kathy, we need to reform the system. in many, many ways, in many, many aspects. And I'm not going to get crazy and say that I want to defund the police. That is the most absurd, ridiculous notion
Agreed.
that I ever heard.
Agreed.
I'm not going to agree with individuals that might say that we need to maybe strip the courts of its judges and its juries. That is an absurd. We have the framework
Yes.
for a democratic system in place. Modify, adjust the laws, make sure that your judges are fair, make sure that your judges follow the law, make sure that a police officer who breaks the law, and when you kill and put your knee on a person and you kill them intentionally or unintentionally, then you need to pay the price. But you don't do away with the entire system
No,
because somebody has broken the law.
no.
That is foolish. That's crazy. That's just nonsensical.
Listen, there are wonderful officers out there doing their job
Yes,
day in and day out. And then there are those that are not,
yes.
just like any other job. And I agree with you, there should be no defunding of the police. But I do think we need to consider looking at the programs that
Now you
could
talk.
maybe assist, uh, Kamala Harris. I admire her. She's also one of my sorority sisters. I'm an Alpha
All
Kappa
right.
sorority incorporated
AKA,
woman
huh?
from University of Maryland, oh, so many decades ago. And I have an admiration for her because she too, like myself, was a prosecutor,
Yes,
but I know from my own experience, she was able to look and work within that system, and it taught her what needs to be changed
right.
from being in the system. You may see things on the outside, but you see a whole lot more when you're on the inside. It's what you do when you are on the outside again that will determine how you're able to really help people.
I worked for Governor Robert P. Casey in the governor's office
Yes.
during his administration, heading up the governor's Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action and Minority Business Enterprise program. I had a very dear friend by the name of Ron Sharp. Ronald Sharp became the first African American commissioner of state police in the country, who was appointed by Robert B. Casey. I didn't know anyone who fought any harder to reform the law, the judicial system than Ron Sharp. Ron Sharp sued the state police. They put in together, Ben Brooks was another individual, Virginia Smith. These are individuals that were a part of the system, they were part of law enforcement.
Hmm.
And they fought harder than anyone to make changes. I say that if we're going to reform, let's form to the benefit of everyone. Let's consider community policing. Let's consider having our police and our judicial system interact with the people. Let's take our young people down to the courthouse. Let's let them do practice debates and practice being judges. I mean, let's teach them how the system works and how it runs, so that we encourage them to go to schools like the University of Maryland, like Howard University, Harvard University,
Yeah.
um, University of California, these law schools, and participate. But let's sort of give them the taste of what's there. I mentioned Ron Sharp because I love the brother. He left us far too early. Uh, but we had individuals at that time that dedicated their lives, and they're African American, and they're in law enforcement. What if we didn't have the law enforcement? In fact, we would have total chaos. It would
Mm.
be ridiculous. But I think that change is going to come, and we got to have people like yourself in the system that not only that has the skills, but also has the heart.
And again, that's what I stand on it. I can't say it enough. I am for fairness. And I also, being from Dauphin County, being born and raised in Harrisburg, I think I am equipped to make fair decisions over my community, over the people that I love.
Yes,
And no one is perfect. I'm not perfect. Everybody makes mistakes all the time. Every day you're going to make a mistake, you know, and that's everybody. But I just, I don't put myself on a pedestal,
yes,
but I do believe in working through with wisdom. And as people come before you and you are deciding on rulings and motions and all types of matters, I want them to know that I'm going to be fair. Fair for what the facts were, fair for the entire circumstances, fair for the community that we all have to live in together.
mm, that's very, 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 very true. And but Kathy, briefly, you've not only been attorney, you've held some high-level positions in the
Yes.
state. And could you just briefly run down some of the positions that you've held?
Well,
People need to
I
know that, if you don't mind.
no, I don't mind. I don't mind. I actually was the director for the Bureau of Minority and Women Business Opportunities. They used to call it BMWBO because it was a mouthful. But working for the business as that was with the Department of General Services. And in this position, I had the responsibility of helping minority and disadvantaged businesses learn about, and obtain state contracting opportunities. So again, I don't believe in just criminal law. There's reform needed for business, for women businesses of color, for women businesses, period,
Yes.
for disadvantaged businesses. And I had the responsibility of making sure they got certified, um, got them off the certification rolls when they didn't need to be on them. I had to also deal with the contract compliance side of it and make we're properly using these subcontracting companies that were voluminous since NDGS, but we it was over several thousands of businesses, so that was a big responsibility. But I later became the deputy commissioner for the Bureau of Professional and Occupational Affairs for the Department of State. So in that position, the commissioner and I had the responsibility of making sure people were certified in their professions, from engineers to the medical board. We sat on the medical board if we had to take a doctor's license, funeral directors, you name it. So we had dozens of boards that we had to sit on and decide whether they should have a license, have it revoked, or have it renewed.
So then you have had a taste of the entire system,
Yes,
not not only the judicial system, but also the executive branch of the system.
that is correct.
And you've had years of experience in doing this. And
Many
there's a
years.
little poem I saw tomorrow marching by on little children's feet, and in their forms and faces read this prophecy complete. I saw tomorrow look at me from little children's eyes, and oh, how carefully we teach if we were only wise. What we're doing is setting an example for young people. Because I understand you also had a daycare center, is that correct?
I do.
So,
I
so what
do.
I'm saying is that we are not only dealing with today, we're dealing with tomorrow.
Yes, we are. I
And
say that little people with little hearts,
yes,
and you have to pour into their spirit. You know, once a child is grown, you can't be responsible for what they do. But until they are grown, you have to really water that seed. You got to plant the seed, you got to water the seed, you got to be patient with them, you got to teach them, and you got to love them, and you have
yes.
to discipline them. And there's just so many different dynamics at play with that. That's a whole nother segment. But what I do like to do is I like to take my kindness and spread it out.
And it's so obvious. The love you have for people, the love you have for humanity and for young people is so obvious. And what you're doing, like I said, will not only benefit us in the present, but it benefit and guarantee our future. We need someone that cares enough to interact with individuals and can take a look at a system, its positive advantages, and also the places where it needs to be modified and it needs to be changed. I wanted you to talk about briefly what some of the things that you've done to let people know. Well, you are a total human being. You're the total package. You know what I'm saying? You're not just the icing on the cake. You're the cake itself.
Oh, thank you.
So that's just the way. That's the way it is. And there will be your reward uh, in heaven. But we hope to see you be rewarded here on earth prior to going to heaven. You have a strong religious background.
Yes, I'm also an ordained reverend.
And you are, whoa. And you are a minister. My goodness.
Yes, I
Like I
can
said,
marry
the
and
total
bury
package.
people. I can marry and bury people.
Pretty good. Wow.
I'm a PK. My mother's, a pastor, and her mother and father, my grandparents were pastor and assistant pastor. But I come from a dynamic background now because my father, he owned bars, restaurants.
Yeah,
He had a one
that's some
that
Chinese, right?
in town called Lesson Tiny's, and everybody would come into Lesson Tiny's,
Right.
and so that got me through law school.
Fantastic.
Um,
Kathy, we're getting down to the end of the show.
okay,
We're at
if
the end.
if I could
Yes.
just share my website with everyone,
Go ahead very
anyone
quickly.
that wants to, please go to Catherine Waters 4, the number 4, DauphinCountyJudge.com. That's KATHRYNWATERS, the number 4, DauphinCountyJudge.com. And visit that website, see how you can get involved and share. We would greatly appreciate it.
An investment in Kathy Waters pays great dividends. You're not going to find a better candidate, and you won't find a better human being. I want to thank you, my listening audience, for tuning in every week to the Richard James Show. We bring you quality of individuals and quality presentation. I want to say to you also, I need your support. Still have my business selling African clothing, art, and that kind of thing. I'm down at Lebanon Valley Farmers Market at 35 South 8th Street in the city of Lebanon. And to all my friends, to all of you, this is Richard James, your neighbor and your friend, in the words of the late great individuals. So long. Take care. Thank you again for tuning in to the Richard James Show. Our African and our African American programs are set up to educate you on what's going on in this world. We thank you for taking out the time to listen. Let us hear from you sometime also.
So this is your neighbor and your friend signing off. And so I'll see you again next week and hear from you again next week. So long. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.
So long now.
Hello, this is Heidi Boglis, and you're listening to The Voice, 17104, Harrisburg's first and only faith-based, community-driven internet radio station. Your choice. The Voice, 17104.